Hey, would you like to know ahead of time when the luckiest days of the month are from the sky? Well, come join our new Lucky Stars Club and get a monthly video explaining all of it, including what days to avoid rolling the dice and how you can apply all of it to your own chart. Sign up now at funastrology.com. Welcome to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology Podcast. Thomas Miller here with Robert Glasscock, and we're going to talk about one of our favorite distinctions, and Robert is so good with this. And we just finished this series of 25 people that we did speed readings for, and we're going to be doing them again. And in many cases, we answered their questions not with their natal chart, but with looking at a horary chart that was really another chart called the Consultation chart, asking the chart a question, but not necessarily looking at the natal chart or the transits for the answer. And I thought that would be a good topic for us to pick apart here on a podcast. Robert, when do we distinguish between the natal chart and either the horary or the consultation chart?
Great question, and I'm glad someone asked. Horary, Horary, it's Latin for of the moment or of the hour. So a true horary chart is erected for the moment that the astrologer fully understands the question being asked by the client and also knows exactly what house rules that question. Not before. If the astrologer has to take a while to explore the question with the client to make sure the astrologer understands exactly what house rules it, it's the moment of understanding. Another method of horary, it's a combination of horary and natal astrology, is something called the Consultation chart, which really goes back to the Middle Ages. But an astrologer named Evangeline Adams in Boston and New York back in the 20s and 30s, this was the only technique she used. She didn't even use transits, much less solar arcs. A consultation chart is set up for the moment of the appointment with the astrologer. It's set up for the astrologer's location. Usually, in those days, certainly, you were in the office with the astrologer, so the location was the same. Today, you're reading online for people that may be halfway around the world. But the meeting takes place where the astrologer is, and the interpretation of the chart takes place where the astrologer is, between the astrologer's ears in their brain. So you set up a chart for the time of the consultation, but you plug the client's natal chart into those house cusps, and you read it just like an horary chart. So this branch of astrology, horary, is terrific. It's one of my favorites for very specific questions. Our house has been on the market for 2 years, and we cannot get a nibble. Can you see when we'll sell the house? All right, you can set up a chart. And you might say, if you've had a house on the market for 2 years and it hasn't sold, it's overpriced. Because you can sell any piece of property tomorrow if you price it right. Now, you may not make any money on it, but if you've had a house on the market for 2 years, and then you can begin to look at this horary chart, and there's an horary timetable. It gives you a number of days, weeks, months, or years, and so on. And you can study the horary chart. Sometimes that timetable is only symbolic. For example, here's the question. The house has been on the market for 2 years. Can you see we are desperate to sell this house? Can you see when we can sell it? The chart may say, yes, you'll sell it in 2 days. All right. Is that literal? Probably not. But it's an increment of 2 that the chart tells you. It gives you this increment when you're reading the chart. Well, 2 days is not. That's illogical. 2 weeks? It's possible. 2 months becomes a little more possible. 2 years is less possible. It's already been on the market for 2 years. So you're now stuck with this increment, according to horary astrology, of 2 months. And then you may discuss, the chart may indeed say, if you got the house priced too high. If you will talk to your realtor and find a more equitable price for your market, you can sell this house in about 2 months. Let me give you another example of this one, Thomas, of horary astrology. Many, many years ago, I had a director's wife in Los Angeles, and I happened to be in New York on business, and we didn't have computers in those days. So I had my briefcase with all the ephemerides and the tables of houses and all that stuff. And she called me where I was staying in New York. And she told me that her sister, who was a chronic alcoholic, had been living with a couple in Florida, but she had become unmanageable. And the couple could no longer handle her. And she was going to have to be put into some kind of home or institution. And my client, the director's wife, said, Bob, if I do that, to afford to put her in a home, I'm going to have to sell the family property in Florida. Can you see anything? And I said, let me call you back in a half an hour. So I set up an horary chart. And frankly, it indicated that the sister would die in about a month. All right, well, you can't say that. But I called her back and I said, if you can wait until the beginning of May, which is only a month away, I think this decision is going to take care of itself. And she said, do you mean she's going to die? And I said, I can't say that. But I can say, I think this situation is going to take care of itself in 1 month, and it does not look like you're going to have to sell the family property. And that was my answer. And sure enough, her sister did die, and she did not have to sell the family property. Now, this is the value of horary astrology. It is so specific. You're not looking at a natal chart and trying to analyze all the different transits and all the different solar arcs. It is a very focused kind of astrology. It is only meant to read this one specific question. And in fact, that's one of the rules of horary. Don't start reading a bunch of other questions from the same chart. Stick to the question and nothing else. And it has worked unbelievably well for me over the last 58 years. I use it occasionally for myself when I have a major decision to make. So that's the beginning to understand how to use horary astrology. It's a fascinating topic. And as you and I just found out in these last speed readings that we did for 25 people, using that consultation chart with some of those people turned out to be incredibly accurate.
Yes, it did. It absolutely did. And yet, I've also seen you take a natal chart and put transits over it or solar arcs and drill down to events that are likely to occur in the future down to the time there. So what's the distinction between using the consultation/horary approach versus the natal transit solar arc approach?
The client determines the difference. If they write me with a very specific question, or two, or three, I always set the consultation chart up when I work anyway. What I do, Thomas, is set up the natal chart. These are all in PowerPoint slides, so I can move around and look at whatever I need to. I have the natal chart. I have the consultation chart for the moment of the appointment, but with the natal planets in it. Then I have a chart with the natal chart and the transits around it. And then I have another wheel. It's called a tri-wheel, 3 wheels with the natal chart in the middle, the solar arcs outside of that chart, and the converse solar arcs outside of that chart. So they're 3 wheels in one. So depending on where the reading goes, you could start even with the transits. And you can see maybe a major indication of a move or a relocation just from the transits to the natal chart. So I might ask, are you considering a move between now and the end of next year? Why, yes, I am. Why? And then you can begin to explore the natal chart with the transits and just springing off of that one indication, which will bring you into topics having to do with their work and career. You look at their age. Well, looks like you're about to be 65. Do you have a retirement package? Why, yes, I do. Well, you don't want to lose that retirement package. So maybe you'll want to consider this move sometime after you retire. You see what I mean? So you begin to get real, just be real with the actual clients. So you can interchange, go back and forth between transits and solar arcs and an horary chart, depending on what's being asked of you. But there's nothing better than horary for analyzing in depth a very specific question. I had one last year. Their son was about to enter high school. I think it was a Catholic school that came highly recommended, but it was all boys. And there was another co-ed school that also some of their friends had recommended very highly. So I looked at this boy's natal chart, and we talked about the various advantages and disadvantages of going to a co-ed school versus going to an all-boys school. And I told him I think he would really prefer going to the all-boys school. because he's going to get very distracted at a co-ed school. Well, initially, her response was, he really wants to go to the co-ed school. And I said, that's okay. And about 2 months later, I heard from her again, and she said, you're not going to believe this. He has changed his mind. He thinks he now wants to go to the all-boys school. I said, good for him. That's absolutely better for him at this stage. So it's fascinating how because nothing in astrology is written in stone. Once you've heard something, it's yours. You own it. It's conscious. It doesn't have any unconscious power over you. It's no longer fated. You have a choice once you've heard it. And I think that's important for people to realize, that you can look at transits and see some upcoming events through transits that are likely. And everything in astrology has a positive side and a negative side. So you want to explore the potentials of both, simply to make those potentials conscious for the client. So now they've heard, okay, this is coming up in July here. What do you want to do with this? And that's the question, not what's going to happen to me, which is a very passive way to live, but what do I want to do with this aspect in June? And then you can begin to explore the creative and positive uses of that aspect and be forewarned about the negative possibilities of it as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So do you have a story where you saw a potential quote-unquote negative in the chart and had somebody deliberately or consciously steer around it?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Sadly, more often than not, I see clients who are not going to get themselves out of negative situations. They've gotten themselves into such a bind through their choices. They've been on meth. They're alcoholic. They are not getting treatment. Oh, I can stop myself. Well, no, you can't. You can't. Because all of these addictive problems are transactional in nature. They involve other people, and they all have one thing in common, which is irresponsibility and escape from responsibility. Oh, I didn't mean it. I was drunk. Well, you may have been drunk, but you meant it. So it's all about irresponsibility to begin with. And if they will not go for treatment, and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg, you can even get free treatment. But all of these conditions have a sociological factor, an interactive factor. All addictions do. But if I'm hearing somebody who, oh, I tried that and it doesn't work, got it. Because they're telling you it's all that yes, but stuff. No matter what you suggest for them to heal themselves, they're going to have a but. They're going to have an excuse not to. And sadly, these people also have a stellium of people around them, their family, their friends, who are also playing codependent games. And you can see upcoming Saturn transits in Pisces, maybe, if they don't get out of this and get treatment, it's going to get worse. And I'll tell them it will. I said, well, okay, fine. You can resist treatment and getting help all you want to. This is going to get worse. You've got legal problems. You just told me that your 16-year-old son is suicidal. You've got financial problems. You haven't paid rent for the last 6 months. You've got a lot of issues that you're not dealing with. So it's going to get worse. You don't even have to be an astrologer to tell them that, but you can see it. So many people, they're comfortable in their dysfunction, and they're terrified to become functional. Because in a lot of cases, it means that they will have to get away from all the dysfunctional people around them, including family, 99 times out of 100. So it's not easy to get out of a dysfunctional situation. But it absolutely can be done. And if you want to live an effective and healthy life, you must do it. You must.
Takes guts to look in the mirror, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Or in my case, you just don't have any mirrors.
You remove them. Feng shui.
Right? Something like that.
All right. Thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. Great insights. And if you guys would like to talk to Robert, question keeps coming up. Are we going to have more of those speed readings? Yes, we will, and we'll announce it here, and we will announce it in advance so you can mark on your calendar when the tickets are going to be sold. But yes, we are going to do that again. If you'd like to have your chart read like those 25 did, we'll be doing that in the future as well. Show notes has everything else. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.